Is that better? Oh, yeah, there we go. So first of all, apologies for absence.
Yes, we've had apologies from the Chair, Councillor Hardman, from Councillor Wilkins and from Chris Green, who's the Head of the Internal Audit Shared Service.
Thank you, Spencer. Item 2. Oh, sorry.
If I could, Chair, from Michael as well, as he's giving his apologies. Thank you.
Item 2 then, declarations of interest. Do we have any? No. Okay. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Anybody got any questions or anything on the minutes? No? Well, I'll propose approving them. Anybody would like a second? Thank you. Item 4 is the statement of accounts, where we're asked to approve the recommendations. Jane, do you want to just run us through them a bit? Thank you.
I can, thank you, Chair. I feel as if we've done 4 years in quick succession at the meeting, so clearly we didn't do them quite that quickly in the finance team. We stuck with the proper deadlines, but anyway. So this report presents a statement of accounts for 2023-24, and what we want to need to do is to ensure we get that over the line by the 28th of February 2025, which is a statutory deadline as been set by government, in line with them trying to get ourselves into a position where we can move forward with the audits. As members know, we've had 3 years' worth of disclaimed audit opinions from EY, which unfortunately means that assets have no choice other than to disclaim this set of accounts because previous years have been disclaimed. And I'm sure Karen will pick up about that when she presents her report. We have asked for delegations in the recommendations, just in case over the next 2 weeks there's any other just minor points that we need to pick up with assets, because what we didn't want to do is have the accounts approved by members today and then that we find actually we've just gone through and found something a little bit different. We absolutely don't expect, and again I think Karen will echo that the same, we don't expect anything to be changed. And again, where there's much point, if I'm honest with you, Chair, going through the accounts because they've been disclaimed. But clearly there's been a lot of work done by the finance team. There's been audit work, which Karen will talk about in terms of the assessments that assets have made in the start of their journey on our accounts, and hopefully at some point then getting to a clean set of accounts as opposed to a disclaimed. And again, just to remind members, the disclaimed is not because of the accounts not being correct or the fact that the finance team have got anything incorrect with them. It's just the fact that EY didn't have that capacity. As an aside, we're still waiting on the public sector audit and accounts to, they've looked at the fee bill that EY have sent us. They sent us something back yesterday, but only sort of late yesterday. So Alice and I just need to go through that to ensure there's at least because we've said members wanted us to challenge that figure, which we have done. The accounts reflect that we've got around £80 million worth of reserves. I won't go into any of the detail really. And also there's what's called a management letter at the end that again, Chair and I, so either yourself, Nick or Adrian will just go through before the 28th just to make sure that we've finalised and confirmed that with assets. So whereas I'd normally go through all of the balance sheet and just sort of explain where all the different accounts come from, because it's the disclaim, the letter of rep is on page 187 and that's just a template from assets. And we're hoping that we'll be received modified, which will be a disclaimer or qualified opinions for the years 23-24, which is the ones we've got this today, 24-25 and potentially 25-26, which is that means we'll have had by the end of 25-26 potentially 5 or 6 years worth of qualified of disclaimed accounts, which clearly isn't ideal for myself or Alice as qualified accountant, as your qualified accountants, and also not for Karen either, because you would prefer to have a set of accounts that you're not having to be put in that position. But we are where we are, Chair, and I think that's the best that we can do. So just if members have got any general comments, really. Thank you.
Any comments, anybody? Graham.
Just a question, really. Obviously, we understand the situation, but I think from the public perception, could you put it in the context of local authorities nationwide? Yes.
Right, yeah. Off the last count, I think I'm looking at count as well, about 80-something% of councils that had disclaimed accounts. Around Worcestershire, I think it was only the county managed to get theirs audited, and Wychavon, didn't they? Wychavon and the county, because they had different. So the county had EY, but Wychavon had a different set of auditors to us. But across the country, it's well over 80%. I think it might even be into the 90%. So it's absolutely not just us, unfortunately. And that's why the government have had to take hold of it, previous government and this, to say this needs to stop now. And the initial deadline backstop, which if you remember was around the 13th of December for those previous years. And now what they've done is said, right, okay, last year, 23-24, needs to be done by the 28th of Feb this year, which is good in one way, but not in another, because it has to be disclaimed.
No, I appreciate it. It's just the public perception, that's all. We have it in reserve for any PR matters, yeah.
Any other questions? I've just got one little one. On page 25, it's about projects and spend. It says a number of projects are underspent. And I just wondered what that meant. Is that we've actually come in under budget, or just that we haven't got to the end of the project and so we haven't spent all the money yet?
It's generally that we haven't spent as much as we originally anticipated, generally. Anything else we would either carry forward into reserve if we knew it was a project that we had to complete, or that money would be pushed back into the balances figure, which I think sits at about 15-16 million at the moment, going up to 19 million at the end of 25-26. But yeah, generally underspent savings kind of mean the same sort of thing. It just depends how the wording used. That right, isn't it, Alice? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's a shame about the disclaimer, but we're in a rock and a hard place. We've got to go forward. So in line with request, the recommendation is to approve the following delegations. Do I do each one separately or together?
No, if you can just read them out separately, and then they can approve the recommendations
Each
together.
one.
Yeah.
So the first one is that the chair of the audit committee, together with the S151 officer, finalise any discussions with assets. Okay. That's approved. Approve the statement of accounts, having considered the completion report and disclaimed opinions on the accounts for 2023-24. And finally, that the chair of the audit committee, together with the S151 officer, can approve the letter of representation for 2023-24, excuse me, as included as a template at Appendix B. Okay, thank you very much. Now, if we move on to item 5, audit completion report. I'm not sure who's talking about that one. Karen, thank you.
Take that, Chair. So, in front of you today, following on from the annual accounts, you have in front of you today our audit completion report for the annual audit 23-24. Alongside, we have given the draft audit opinion, which we intend to include alongside the accounts, and the letter of representation, along with our auditor's annual report as well. So this is the complete suite of outputs for us from the 23-24 audit. Focusing on the audit completion report, which summarises the audit of the financial statements for the year. As Jane has previously mentioned, we are intending to issue a disclaimed opinion on the 23-24 accounts. This is driven by not only the imposed statutory backstop dates, which have led to us having time constraints in terms of actually being able to perform the audit. And when I say perform the audit, it's because your predecessor auditors also issued disclaimed opinions, and therefore we do not have any assurances over the opening balances. And those disclaimed opinions came at the middle of December, and we've got the statutorily imposed date of the 28th of February. So there was time constraints in enable us to actually do the work to gain the assurance over those accounts for the last 3 years, actually, for Wychavon that have been disclaimed. We also have the statutory backstop date that we do require to provide our opinion. We could have continued to carry on the audit to make sure that we did achieve a different outcome, but that backstop date has been put in place to ensure that actually local authorities can meet their statutory reporting deadlines as well. So we do have to report and conclude by that date as well. So our audit completion report does provide the output from our work in 23-24. As you will see through the report, we have had to conclude that actually we've not been able to conclude on some of the risk areas that actually all of the risk areas that we identified. The audit procedures we would typically undertake, we've been unable to conclude on those due to the fact of the time constraints and the imposed backstop date and your predecessor auditors disclaiming the opinions. That all said, we have been doing work for the 23-24 audit, and the work that we have done, we will use, the terminology is that we will accrete that information into future years' audits so that we are not starting from base zero. We have done work this year to allow us to inform and support the build back that we will need to do for the previous years. The report also reflects the fact that looking forward, we will be working with management as well to develop that plan and understand that plan to enable us as the auditors and the council to get to a position where we are moving away from disclaimed opinions, modified opinions, to get back to what I'm going to say is normality. There isn't anything else I really wanted to pick out from the completion report. As I say, unfortunately, because of the position that we're in, a lot of it we've been unable to conclude and report on to you. The report does also include our summary of our value for money work, which is also included in the auditor's annual report in a bit more detail. But the high level findings are that your predecessor auditors didn't identify any what we call key recommendations or significant weaknesses. And equally, we have not identified any significant weaknesses or key recommendations that we would want to highlight. Excuse me. Some final points. We do need to confirm that we are independent from the council. And equally, our audit completion report does disclose the fees for the audit as well. So I'm happy to open it up to any questions from the committee.
Do we have any questions?
I suppose obviously I think it's a testament to the Jane and Alice that there's green across the board and there's been no sort of recommendations in the report. I think the only question, again, I think it's been asked before, is when do you think that normality will actually return?
I think, as Jane and Alice have put in their report, I do think it is going to take at least 2 to 3 years. Part of that process is that we need to, in effect, operate by 3 balance sheets. When I say that, because we have to have the opening balances and then 2 years worth of financial statements where we are considering that actually we are reporting a clean opinion. So it is going to take a couple of years to work through that and build back the assurance from the previous years as well. So it is going to take a bit of time. As I say, we are going to work with management to work through what that plan looks like, and we will, using the word again, accrete that information. We will be doing work each year to make sure that actually we do arrive at that position where at the earliest opportunity that we can.
That's great, thanks. Just in time, probably, when we get scrapped and become a unitary anyway.
Do we have any other comments? Graham?
I think it was the similar plan. I made a note here on page, was it 170, about your recovery plan. Presumably that's what you call the recovery plan, is it? Whereas you're saying you're working with a national group, is it?
We do. So at a council level, we will work with management to develop the plan for the council. But we are actually, as a firm, involved in discussions with the wider sector to understand actually how as an audit profession we can work together to make sure that actually we've got accepted practices and procedures in place from both the regulator and, as I say, the wider sector that will allow us to work together to get to that position.
One other minor point I had on page 174, sorry, 173, which was confirmation requests from third parties. Your commentary was, we requested permission from the council to send confirmation requests to third parties where cash and investments are held. All request confirmations are not being received. Is there an issue there on that?
Yeah, potentially we should have clarified that. So management provide us with what we call mandates so that we can request third-party confirmations. We did receive all of those and we issued them. It was that the third parties we didn't receive all of the third-party confirmations back. However, because we were in the position that we are in terms of the opinion, we did not push for those. But there isn't an underlying issue. We would, in a normal cycle, we would have pushed for those, but management did everything that they needed to do.
Yeah, I may have misread it. I saw it, sorry, it was a bit late when I was going through these, that the council hadn't given you the confirmations.
No, they had.
You've had sufficient from the council
Yes.
themselves to get what you required?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? I've read it all through. No areas for concern at all on that, considering the state we're in anyway. Thank you. So we take that item as duly noted and move on to item 6, which is the auditor's annual report, and we're due to note that one as well. So is that Karen again, please?
So the auditor's annual report is, after the audit completion report is focusing on the audit of the financial statements with the summary position on the value for money. The auditor's annual report follows that in terms of concluding on the overall audit. So it summarises actually what is in the audit completion report, but also provides some further narrative around about our value for money opinion. But as I have previously mentioned, we didn't identify any significant weaknesses and we have not noted any key recommendations for the council in respect of that area.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No? I'd just like to say, reading through it, there's a recurring comment of no weaknesses or recommendations identified, which I quite like to see. Thank you. So we'll take that item as duly noted as well, and move on to the 2025-26 budget and money plan. Is that Alice? Jane, Thank you.
Yeah, I'll pick this one up, and we've done a bit of a tag team over the next few reports. Apologies, members, you've probably seen this if you've sat in any other committee meeting, either executive board, if you sat through that, or overview scrutiny. No, overview scrutiny is next week, isn't it, Alice? So this is the final version. This was agreed on the 12th, so on Wednesday night at executive board, to be recommended through to full council on the 26th, which is where we set the council tax and the resolutions. The main differences from your pack that you had back in November is on the budget scrutiny group. So at 3.6, page 213, it talks about the budget scrutiny recommendations, which goes from increasing council tax band D by 2.99 through to off-street parking. So those are the bullet points. Executive board have agreed bullet point 2, the 50,000, instead of 25,000, which is bullet point 4, they've allocated 30,000, and they've also allocated at bullet point 5, where it's talking about officer resource to highlight the issues of fly tipping. They've allocated £10,000. They have they've recommended to council to increase council tax by 2.5%. So initially it was 2% last November. So executive board have considered, and very clear, Councillor Powell was very clear with the budget scrutiny group at exec board, that took on all of their discussions and considerations and has moved it up from 2%, but not gone as far as 2.99, partly because of the balances we currently have, but partly because inflation's roughly running at 2.5%. So that was where the executive board have landed the increase in council tax. Other than that, the only real other increase is on the back of a promise. Members will remember there was an empty homes promise last year for 2 years empty homes officer. What we've looked at now is to also put that officer in for a further 2 years, so for 26, 27 and 27, 28 at a cost of 115,000. So that's in the money plan. So if I just probably take you to the money plan, which is on page 249, members will see there on 249, if you just look at the column which is original budget 25-26, if you go right down to the bottom, 19.9 million. So our balances, this isn't not our reserves, our earmarked reserves, which sit at around 80 million at the moment. This is the balances figure. So this is whenever we've been made savings or underspends. I think Nick, in the past when you mentioned about that, whenever we've made underspends, we then push that into balances. So we're looking at just shy of 20 million. But as you can see, quite quickly, by 26, 27, we've got big deficits. So 5.8 million, 6.8, 6.8. So our balances go from 19, just shy of 20 million, down to 1 million, which really is the minimum we would want them to be. In fact, we'd rather them to be around 2.5 million. And the reason behind that massive drop is, again, if you go back to the original budget 5-6 and you look in the sort of the second or even third block along where it says finance from, if you go down to the one that will say assume business rates growth, 4369. So we're assuming that in this year coming we'll get 4.3 million, because that's the additional growth that the government's allowed us to keep from business rates. But they're looking to do a whole funding review change, so we think that will probably go from 4.3 down to 250,000, and we don't know how long that will take us to get back up again. So we've been projecting that probably for the last 2 years, haven't we, Alice? I think since you've been so last 6 years nearly then, isn't it? We've assumed that because all governments have said we're going to reset the business rates and we're going to do a new funding formula. So we assume that will happen. And also 2 down from that, we've got this thing called the funding floor, which was protecting us from the losses of a new homes bonus because that scheme was disappearing. We don't know what we'll get in its place. So at the moment we've gone from 3.1 million down to 0. So the combination of that, mainly the combination of those 2 things plus the additional costs, bring us to the big deficit. So on the back of, not just on the back of the peer review, but the peer review, as members will know, said that we need to look at a transformational change programme to realise additional income or realise efficiency stroke savings. So we're working on that at the moment. We've done quite a bit of work on that so far. So that should start to chip away at some of the figures that are in there. But clearly, they're very large numbers to find. And I probably won't go into any more detail than that unless there's anything else, Alice, no. But as I say, apologies if members have already heard it, or we'll hear it again next week.
Thank you, Jane. Any questions, comments? No? Okay, well, it's just prudent budgeting, and we hope that the government doesn't take it all, but they seem to be taking everything from everybody, so I can't see why they won't take this as well. But anyway. Okay, we'll take that one as considered and move on to item 8, the Treasury Management Strategy for 25-26. Alice.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Hopefully this report is familiar to members. It sets out how we intend to manage our investments and, should we need to borrow externally, how we would do this. We currently have no external borrowing. The only change we've made for 25-26 is to add in the Co-op Bank, which is now a subsidiary of Coventry Building Society, onto our list of approved institutions that we would lend to. There are no other changes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? No? I have something about page 262, item 9, but I'm not sure what that is until I found it. Oh, gone too far. Could you bear with me a minute? Oh, no, it was just actually a comment to say it's nice to see we diversified into things that other councils don't traditionally do, and I think we should do more of it if we've got enough time left. Thank you. So thanks for that. Let's move, take that as considered and move on to, we on item 9? We must be, yes. Capital Strategy 2025-26. Is that Alice again? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The capital strategy sets out how capital spend, borrowing and investment decisions are made. There aren't any material changes from last year, apart from in Appendix 1 at the end of Part 2, where we've listed those capital schemes that the Council's looking to support over the life of the capital programme. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Alice. Have we got any comments or? This is going to be a very brief meeting. I thought it was going to go on for hours. Well, we'll take that one as noted and move on to item 10, Internal Audit Progress Report. This was going to be done by Chris, but I think, Alice, Jane, you're taking it. Thank you.
Everybody going backwards and forwards. So Chris, as I say, has offered his apologies for the meeting. The Internal Audit Progress Report, members are quite used to this now. So this is the report that shows progress towards the 24-25 audit plan and also just reminds members that Chris is currently working on, excuse me, with the team, the audit plan for 25-26. So what he's asked me is if members have got any areas that they feel he needs to include in that audit plan, any areas where you feel there may be some risk that you would like him to look at. He's very happy to have a conversation with you directly, or you can mention it at the meeting, but he's quite happy for you to email him just to, if there's any areas that you feel he needs to do a little bit more audit work on. So the main thing within the report is from page 307, Appendix A, and this just talks about how the internal audit plan is being delivered. So at 2.1 you can see that 4 reports have been issued, 2 draft reports. So this is now fully established, got a full staffing establishment, which I think is probably the first time we've been able to say that, and I think he would have liked to have said that himself. You might have got a round of applause with the fact that it's probably been a few years, hasn't it, Alice, that he's kept losing staff and bringing in new people. So they're really moving on a pace in terms of making sure that reports are issued. And really good news, the 3 that are appended to the report, so that's revenues, so housing benefit, etc., revenue, so that's accounts tax, benefits, housing benefit, etc., and also business rates are all classified as substantial, which is the highest rating they can get, and I think that's great considering they work across ourselves as Wychavon, Malvern and also Worcester City. So bringing them back in-house 18 months ago was a really good idea, because the report's very good. The performance indicators, which we'll start reporting on, and that will be in the annual report for 4-5, as you can see, from delivery through to customer satisfaction. So they send out surveys to all of the customers. And then there's just about the priority of recommendations, which is the risk assessment matrix in terms of substantial, reasonable, and also then what's seen as the individual numbers, substantial risk and acceptable risk, through to, which we all know we do have, acceptable risks where we've mitigated them as much as possible. And just so members know, next at the next meeting, which is March, yes, it is March, isn't it? I'll be bringing the risk management strategy and also the corporate risk register. And if you remember, members did ask for some changes which we made at the last meeting, so they'll be reflected in the 25-26 audit report that will be around the corporate risk register. So I haven't really got anything else. I think it's just quite positive news, Chair.
Thank you very much, Jane. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Neil?
It was just that in page 312, it says at the time of the report writing, there was 167 productive days had been delivered against a full year plan of 252. That doesn't, I mean, that seems to be quite a lot to get delivered before the end of the financial year. And I know he's got a full team now. I'm just wondering, you know, I mean, I know they're going at a good pace because obviously you said 82 days in the last 2.5 months, but there's not much left to go in the year. So how confident are they to sort of get within? I think is it 90% they would like to get within?
Through you, Chair. So often, as long as they've started the audit by the end of March, and also again, and moving on a pace with that, we would class that as included within the 90%, as long as there's just final reports to be done. I feel as if he's going to about Alice, but I feel as if they're the resource that they're throwing now at our audits, I'd be quite confident. But it's in Chris's gift and the team's gift to do that. But with the audits I've had quite recently with the chasers on, we need this information, we need to get this finalised, the scopes that we've done, I am quite confident that they will be able to deliver that, because they've done 82 days in 2.5 months, which again is good news. I don't know whether Alice, you're comfortable with what you're seeing so far? Yeah.
That's great, thank you.
Anybody else got any questions? No? Well, thank you for that. Thanks, Jane. I think they've made some good progress on that, and it's looking, very positive, I think. So thank you. So we'll take that one then as duly noted as well. And it just reminds item 11, date of future meetings, which is Friday the 28th of March. So that's the meeting closed then.